Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Recently my friends at Banggood asked me if I wanted to look at this. This is the Eachine TYRO69. And I've seen a lot of the Tyro quads, but I haven't really haven't had my hands on them, but they sent me this to take a look at. And I think what I'm going to do is unbox it, go over the parts, do a quick build on it, and I'm going to give it a couple weeks, fly it, tune it. I'm going to come back with my thoughts, and I'm going to give this thing away. So stick around, let's get into the box and see what we got. We have an XT30, looks like a servo connector, and another little pin connector, or a pin header. This looks like it's probably for an ESC. A bag of rubber standoffs and metal screws, not plastic. Flight controller. So this is a F4 flight controller. It looks like pretty much everything here is on pins, or sorry, on connectors. It's a 20 by 20 size flight controller. Look like they have solder points underneath. So we got PPM S plus 5 volt ground. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, positive, negative over here. Let's see, and I think this silk screening here is for these. So you got cam 5 volts, ground, VTX 5 volts, ground, current sense here, signal port 6. You got an analog r-xsr, a 3.3 volt power output there. So it does look like everything that's on connectors up here is also on solder pads on the underside. And then let's see, you've got RX and TX1, so you got UART1 here, UART2 there. You get one of these ultra craptastic battery straps. These things are pure garbage, but hey, at least they included one. We've got a little TPU print for the camera mount. This is not the best looking 3D print I've ever seen. 4-in-1 ESC, it's a 20 amp. It does come with a capacitor pre-solder onto it. This is a, let's see, 150 microfarad, 25 volt capacitor, a Rubicon. Ugh, these feel crusty. Okay, so we have some 1104 8600 kV motors. They feel fairly smooth. They don't, I don't know how to quantify it, but they don't feel great. I mean, the aluminum feels strange. It almost feels like thin. I don't know, it's really hard to explain it. Like, it doesn't have a real solid feel to it. The motor wires here, this is not silicone wire, so this is most likely just an extension of the motor winding wire. So it's just probably a laminated wire that they have tinned the ends of. Now you can trim this back and re-tin it, but you have to burn off that outer coating of lacquer, and I've heard that you have to melt a aspirin tablet to do it. I've never tried it, and I don't think I'm going to with these. These are going to be kind of interesting to work with. Obviously a C-clip design, T-mount style for the props. You get 4 of these. They don't look bad, but they don't look great, if that makes any sense. But then again, for the price, you know, what do you expect? It's one of the divorced board style cameras, kind of like what you would see in the Emax Tiny Hawk. All right, so now we've got the frame. Pretty simple design, which is kind of the calling card of the toothpick class quads. Frame is about 2 millimeters thick, so pretty average. It's fairly stiff for being 2 mil. The arms are 6 mil wide, and from corner to corner it is 105, so about 105 millimeters corner to corner. Not bad. They could have saved some weight by cutting out the center, but it doesn't look like a bad. Doesn't look like a bad frame. Cut's fairly decent all the way around. It's not chamfered or sealed or anything like that, but you know, what do you expect? So not too shabby there. And for the props, we have the classic King Kong, sorry, LDARC 65mm props, and you get a bag of each. So you got 10 pairs of left and right hand props. So you got a lot of props, and I know from flying my other toothpick class quads, these things just, they don't break. They get chewed up, and they get bent, and you just bend them back. You can go a long time on one set of props. And I believe that is all. So no instructions, no directions. I'm sure they are online, but we will give it a go as it is. All right, let's get started. All right, well, let's get at her. I guess first thing we're going to do is go ahead and solder the motors to the ESC. Let me grab my handy dandy little soldering jig here. All right, so first thing, prick myself off a piece of solder. I have my, using my usual Hakko 888D, and I run 850 degrees Fahrenheit. If you don't like it, I don't really care. It's the way I do it. And I'm just gonna go ahead and tin these pads up. Just a little bit of solder. Nothing crazy. You want to try to avoid soldering over top of the board. Okay, and since these motors aren't the traditional motors with silicone wire, I'm just going to go ahead and solder them straight on. I'm not going to bother clipping any wire. If I have excess, I'll just fold it underneath the stack. Call it a day. All right, that first motor needs a little bit more solder on it. There we go. And that's it. That's one down. Same process for the other three. There we go. That is our motor soldered up. Next, we'll go ahead and solder up this XT30 pigtail. One thing you really want to be careful of is make sure that the positive side is actually on the red wire and the negative is on the black wire. Give this a fresh coating of solder. Hopefully the board's preheated now, because that does help out a lot. The ground goes faster. Ground usually takes the longest though. Oh, quick and easy, look at that. In, out, done. And that's probably about all the soldering we're gonna have to do, other than soldering up our receiver, which we'll cross that road when we get to it. So I'm gonna turn my iron off, but just a little pro tip for you guys. Go ahead and clean your tip off as best you can. Put a big blob of solder on it. Don't clean it off and shut it off that way. You wanna leave the blob of solder on the tip and it'll keep the tip from oxidizing. before you go this far, before you go and plug a LiPo in, the first thing, and I can't recommend this enough, is just a plain old jeweler's loupe. This, just looking the board over, you will be able to find so many, you can find so many errors just by looking at the board before you throw power at it. So I'm going to give it a quick look over, give it the old ocular assessment. It looks pretty good. So then there's two other things you might want to get a hold of, and these are both smoke stoppers. These are just different types of smoke stoppers. This one is kind of like a, it's got a little poly fuse in it. It's made by RDQ, Race Day Quads. And the idea is you plug your LiPo in and you get that green light. Now, say you were to have a short like this, it actually clamps the current off by opening up a fuse on the board, and it doesn't allow any more current to flow. This is pretty nice. It's nice and compact. It's great for taking to the range. I really like those, but you got to be careful what voltage range those are good for. And the other one is just this. It's just a regular automotive light bulb, kind of wired in series with the battery pack, and it's the same deal. It's a current limiting device. If it draws too much current, it'll actually light the bulb, and once you see it light up, disconnect it right away. Try to save your electronics. So here we go. Got my LiPo connected to my smoke stopper, and 3, 2, 1, no smoke. There you go. I don't know if you guys heard that. I'll put the microphone down so you can possibly hear this. Those tones, doot. That's the ESC initializing. And the tone is actually created by the motors. It's basically, pretty much exactly how a speaker works. There's a coil, and they're running current through it to generate tones. And that's how you get your ESC tones, your startup tones, your beeper tones. All that stuff is through the motors. So with that out of the way, we know that our ESC is at least initializing and booting up the motors. Or the ESC is initializing, and we can verify that by we heard the motors. All right, next step is let's go ahead and get this stuff mounted up to yon frame here. So I'm really hoping that all the hardware they include is correct. Installing a stack usually is the thing that takes me almost the longest out of all the builds I do. So in the assortment of screws here, there's some random stat, there's some rubber standoffs. They all seem to be fairly the same length, or close to, so I'm just going to pick out a random 4, and we need to figure out which way we want to orient this. I'm going to mount the battery in the traditional way, battery going on the frame like so underneath. There is some merit to putting it toilet tank style. Yeah, you know, I'm going to run it toilet tank style. I've never done that, and I'm going to do it this time. Let's see how well that works out. So we got our ESC on top of the standoffs, and see how much wire we have hanging out. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to kind of manage that a little bit. So what we're going to do is just gently fold the wire back. Now, there's a phenomenon called wicking. If you put too much solder into the wire, the solder will actually make its way up under the jacketing of the wire, and it actually makes it really brittle. So you don't want to wick wires. In my world, a wicked wire is criteria for rejection. Obviously, we're just flying toys here, so it's not that crucial. But wire wicking is a thing, and it's important in the real world. I think the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the back side of the standoffs with each of these. Just to try to clean it up a little bit. You know, let's class up the joint. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and attach these motors to the frame. All right, so we've got our ESC installed. No wires are getting pinched. Everything looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and get our rubber grommets, I guess, reinstalled. And we need this cable here. So this is going to be your ESC connection cable. So this will route power, ground, motor. So you got power, ground, and the motor 1, 2, 3, and 4, or some sort of order like that on there. So let's go ahead and install that, and it should correspond to kind of the naming convention here on the ESC. So we've got positive, so that should be there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, green, yellow, white, blue, and then ground should be this black wire right here. You probably can't see that. There it is. So then our flight controller is this guy here. Same deal. Go ahead and give her a little click. It doesn't actually click, but... And I'm going to tuck the wires up under itself, kind of make a nice clean look there. And you want to pay attention to this here. That's the orientation of the board. Now you can put this in whatever direction you want. There's just going to be some more messing around in Betaflight to get it to work correctly. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and get a few more this little rubber grommets installed. All right, so this here is going to be your connection for your receiver. So we'll go ahead and plug that in there. And it's going to be ground, 5 volts, and S-bus. A detail I forgot to show is if you're going to use S-bus, you need to bridge these 2 pads here to activate the inverter for S-bus. If you're doing PPM, then do the other side. Camera here. So now we got our camera. I'm not entirely sure which way is up. Let's plug in the front here for your camera power, ground, and video input. So we'll go ahead and plug that into the front. Smart audio control here. And your output. So your camera video will come in through this wire here, go through the OSD, come out of the OSD here to the VTX, and the black wire here is your smart audio VTX switching. So I have 2 different options here for receivers. I have a XM Plus here. Give you an idea how big that is. And then I've also got an r-xsr, which is even smaller than the XM Plus. So we've got XM Plus and an r-xsr. r-xsr is a full telemetry, full featured receiver. The XM Plus is not, does not have telemetry. But this is a little bit lighter and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. So I think I'm gonna go with the XM Plus because I kind of want to save my r-xsrs for other projects. So now we got to figure out how to mount our r-xsr. So let's go ahead and pop that out of there for now. Let's go ahead and give it the old snippy snip for up soldering iron. Go ahead and strip back some of your wire here. Again, I run 850 degrees. And on this, as the connectors go, S-bus is the one with the square, which is weird because I always thought labeling conventions, the squares were always ground, but I guess not in this case. So we've got that like that, and S-bus is going to be our yellow wire, and then 5 volts. Again, it's just a little on the long side. And gurned. There we go. And that is all the soldering we need to do to build an entire quad. So now the fun part is trying to figure out where to stick this stupid thing. So this is what all these manufacturers do with bind and fly quads, is they They give you all the stuff, but they never think about where to stick the receiver. So, just give me a minute, I'll think about this here. All right, yeah, so I think I'm going to take this and kind of stick it right in here, like that, just right on top of everything. The nice thing about the XM Plus is it does not come with any heat shrink. So that's kind of annoying. All right, and typically you'd want to stick a piece of like double-sided foam tape in there just to kind of make sure it doesn't go anywhere, but I'm not too terribly worried about that. Yeah, let's go ahead and throw some nuts on top. I'm going to go till you see just a slight deformation in the rubber standoffs. And there we go. That's pretty much it. We got to figure out what to do with these antennas now. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the arms. I'll just tuck the excess in side here on top of the ESC. Don't tell anybody. All right, so we're gonna do the old zip tie trick here. Pretty easy. Take a zip tie, stick it on the arm. And cinch it down. Do one on each side. Just kind of lay your antenna wire on top of the zip tie. Go ahead and give it a little snip. I usually cut the zip tie just a little bit longer than I need it to be. Some heat shrink on there. Now that was kind of wasteful. I probably shouldn't have used an entire piece of sheet shrink, but oh well. And do it to the other side. And just squish it out with my fingers to kind of lock in the flavor, you know. All right, and then the last little detail I like to do is I've got some of this this Tessa tape. It's like a cloth tape. If you look under the dashboard of your car, and there's wires all wrapped up. Kind of got like that fuzzy exterior. It's probably this stuff. I like to just take a small piece, kind of lay the wires flat on the arm here. I'll just give it a couple of wraps. It just keeps things nice and tidy. That's it. We are all done with the assembly. Let's go ahead and plug it in, check for smoke. Take your bets now. What do you think? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's a good sign. That's a real good sign. All right, so looks like we got the camera oriented correctly, which is nice. But oh my God, that thing is out of focus. That is terrible. You can really tell how bad the focus is by, I mean, look at the background. Even if I face it out towards the wall there, see how just massively out of focus it is. And you can see the OSD is crystal clear. So that is not good. So we're gonna have to try to focus this thing, except for the lens is, oh, jeez. Yeah, okay. So that just came off. Looks like it's held on by hopes and dreams, and that's about it. Okay, well, all right, so I got the camera all fixed back up. Just very carefully kind of cut the adhesive back off of the old camera housing, and I had to take a pair of pliers and kind of, you know, break the camera loose from the adhesive. Very carefully glue it all back together, refocus it, and then I just smeared this this yellow antenna fixing glue on there, and the stuff holds pretty darn tight, but it's soft enough where you could probably break it back off if you needed to. Picture's actually pretty nice on it. The focus range is basically all the way down until the lens bottoms against the sensor, and I think probably what happens is they did that and it put a little pressure on the sensor. Probably in shipping the adhesive wasn't the best and it kind of lets loose, but I think this will be just fine. All right, so that's it. We'll get it over to the computer. I'll get it bound to my controller, go over to the computer, and we'll check out Betaflight and get this thing set up, get her flying. All right, so I have my quad bound to my FrSky X-Lite Pro in D16 mode. That's the ACCST protocol, not the new access stuff. Remember I have a XM Plus in this. I'll go ahead and connect it to my computer. This has Betaflight 3.5.5 on it, pre-flashed, and its target is a Maytech F411. So the first thing I like to do is just make sure the board's aligned properly, so I'll just pick up on the front of the quad, make sure front goes up, and then pick up on the right-hand side and make sure it tilts to the right. Sorry, left side. Tilts to the left. That's good. All right, we're gonna come over to ports and we'll see what we have set up here. UART1 is my receiver, and this will be TBS Smart Audio. Go ahead and hit save. T-Shot 600 is fine, and this is set up for props in. I'll just leave it that way. 8K, 2K accelerometer, barometer. We don't have a bar out, so I'll turn that off anyways. TYRO69 arming, I'm going to make that 180. This is a safety feature that keeps it from arming if it's in your hand or something like that and it's tilted to the side, but if you land on like a roof, you can't rearm the quad because you're past that whatever degrees is. So if you make it 180, it basically disables it. Also, if you shut the accelerometer off, same sort of thing. Soft serial, we do not need soft serial. Air mode, I definitely want air mode. And we'll go ahead and hit save. This is all pretty basic Betaflight, bog standard stock stuff. Go to receiver. And there we go. It's receiving my stick commands. They're all kind of messed up and backwards, but we can go ahead and fix that real quick here. So I set my quads up as TAER. Go ahead and hit save. And there we go. Go over to the modes tab and set arm for aux1, angle. I'm not gonna fly with the angle mode. Beeper, aux4. Flip over after crash. I really don't recommend using flip over after crash on this quad because you can burn up the ESCs pretty easily. But if you're stuck on like a roof, it might bail you out. And pre-arm. I recently started running pre-arm after a quad turned on in my hand. So, it's something I do now. And next to the motors tab, let's make sure everything's spinning the proper direction. So this, you're gonna need to connect a LiPo to your quad. Make sure props are off. Tell it, yes, I understand this. And go ahead and slowly spool up motor 1. Make sure the correct motor is spinning and it's spinning the correct direction, which this one is. Spin up motor 2. That is spinning the wrong direction. 3, spinning the wrong way. And 4 is right. All right, so we need to reverse 2 and 3. Pretty easy to do.
disconnect from Betaflight, and load up the heli configurator. Make sure you've disconnected from Betaflight. Read setup, and we can reverse 2 and 3. And right setup. And we can also see if this is the most current version of the firmware. So we have 16.7, flash all, and the most current is 16.7. So we're good there. We can get back out of that, get back into Betaflight, and just verify the motors one more time. And this comes with basically just the warning setup on it. I'll add VTX channel and timer 2, average cell voltage. Just go ahead and put them where you want on your display. No wrong answers here. And I'm not sure if this camera's in NTSC or PAL. This positioning here is kind of safe for both. But if you get in there and you start looking at your goggles and you don't see any of your OSD, most likely it's a NTSC format and you're missing it because it's getting cropped off. And that is, shut all this stuff off, hit save. And one last thing that we didn't cover was setting up your motor beeper. It's pretty easy. You just set up your switch and your mode, and the last thing you need to do is come down here and click r-x loss and r-x set. So if your controller disconnects from it, this will cause the motors to beep, and then this will cause the motors to beep when you activate it on a switch. And that's it. She's good to go. Let's get her in the air.
Let's get these props on here. So we're doing props in. So I'm gonna look for the ones that are kind of scooping the air towards the camera. It's always good to kind of twist these on rather than just push them straight on. Now, if you decide to reverse your props, then obviously put them on the opposite direction. There we go. That's installed. Got a little 2S LiPo here. I have no idea what charge level it's at. I think I'm about to realize that this battery strap is way too big. Yeah, just a little. All right, I'll have to trim that down. I just want to see how this thing, see if this thing will hover at all. So let's go ahead and plug it in. Got my transmitter turned on. There we go. All right, so with that all said and out of the way, let's go ahead and back out. And we'll go ahead and arm it up, see how it does. Do a little forward stick, a little left, a little right. Perfect. Now, I really don't recommend you maiden this thing on your bench like this, but it's raining out and I don't know, pretty confident in my building abilities and how this thing is going to work. So that's about it. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching me put this thing together and kind of working through its little flaws and issues. This was sent to me by Banggood for review. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, click that bell icon down below. And I do have a Patreon account. If you really want to help me out here, I'd be greatly appreciated. If you're interested in this, check it out in the product description. It's an affiliate link for this model or anything you want to buy on Banggood. Click through that link. I'll get a piece of the pie. Cost you nothing. Anyways, so going forward with this, I will take it out, go give it a rip, fly it a bunch, tune it, and I'll come back with a quick little review of what I think of the whole thing, and I'll give this thing away. So one lucky viewer, one lucky subscriber will get this sent to them within the US, but we'll talk about that in the next video. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by, thanks for watching, and as always, keep flying.